This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Pittsburgh to Scranton. It's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Mara Donnelly. Hi, Mara.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, there's so much happening around the state of Pennsylvania and around the country now.
Yes.
I hardly even know where to start. We have a situation where it looks like all our leaders should be given a copy of Hiroshima to read.
Okay.
Maybe both the Democrats and the Republicans might like to read really what transpires in a nuclear exchange. Or maybe some of our leaders and our students should be given Anne Frank's story to read about the Jewish girl who hid from the Nazis in Amsterdam during the Second World War with her family. And lastly, maybe all of our students should be sent to the Holocaust Museum and be required to go through the Holocaust Museum. There's certainly lots of material and lots of issues that are swirling about right now that have the nation and our state embroiled in. Of course, this has affected higher education quite a bit, hasn't it?
It has. It sure has, across the country.
And to talk about how it's affected higher education, we have one of the best experts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Ken Mash, the president of APSCUF, with us again. Ken, thank you very much for joining us. It's nice to have you back.
Charlie, Moore, it's great to be here.
Well, let me ask you just briefly before we start with our interview about the nation as a whole. How do you characterize, how do you explain what is going on at many of our college campuses right now in regard to Gaza and the Israeli question?
Yeah, I think it's a very complicated situation. There's, you always wind up with complicated situations when you have rights that come into conflict. On the one hand, the rights of people to express themselves and to protest. On the other hand, the rights of people to go about their business and do what they want to do. So it does get very complicated. But as far as like our universities, the state-owned universities in Pennsylvania, we really haven't had that occurring on our campuses. And so I think it's occurring more at certain kinds of schools than it is at small or regional colleges.
Well, that's good news for Pennsylvania. They haven't had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Ken, how would APSCUF like to see the upcoming state budget turning back to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? Of course, this is a major importance to your organization, and are wondering what you would like to see with the upcoming state budget here in Harrisburg.
So recent data just came out. We're moving up. We're doing better as far as funding for public higher education in Pennsylvania.
What, we're not at the bottom anymore?
We're not at the bottom. We've managed to get all the way around 40.
That's great.
So that's an improvement from where we are.
That's a testimony to your leadership.
Oh, I'll take that. So we would like to, of course, continue that trend. And I think that we're in a fortunate position because I think that that there is bipartisan acknowledgement about the fact that what we're going to need in the future is an educated workforce. And we're just not going to be in a position to do that if it's not affordable. We're going to be rated by other states as far as college students. It's going to become more difficult for Pennsylvania to maintain its population if we keep having an exodus of people out of the Commonwealth. And of course, companies are going to be reluctant to invest in Pennsylvania if there is not a prepared workforce to be here.
We won't be able to attract any new business. That would be very difficult.
And of course, we're also facing shortages in teachers and nurses and social workers. So I think we're in a position right now where there is bipartisan recognition of that. So we last year the system received a 6.5% increase. I believe the chancellor is asking for a 6% increase this time around. Of course, we could talk about the governor's plan. The governor would like there to be a 15% increase.
Which one do you like better?
Shockingly, I prefer the 15% increase, and it's because it's really desperately needed. We have several universities which are still, and we've talked about this before, carrying debt, and so that money that should be spent to help students, to give them the services they need and the supports they need, is being instead moved to paying off the debt that exists because there were decisions made at a certain time to build residence halls and things of that
And
sort.
those universities are?
Well, certainly, if we're looking at Penn West, which is the consolidated university that used to be Cal and Edinburgh and Clarion, they're carrying a tremendous amount of debt. It's also true at Commonwealth, the other consolidated university, which is Mansfield and Lock Haven and Bloomsburg, and in particularly at Mansfield, where they do have a substantial amount of debt. But it's not just them. It's almost every university has some form of debt. And we're seeing even universities, being pressed more that for some time we weren't even worried about, like Millersville right now is facing a financial squeeze. It's not quite the same place as others, but nevertheless, they're feeling the need to really tighten their belts even more. And that's occurred after years and years of cuts and cuts and cuts and pulling back. So we need to get out of this cycle. We need to be affordable for our students. We need to increase enrollments. And it's very difficult when we're surrounded by states who have cheaper tuitions, or states like New York and New Jersey now, which are giving major grants. You can go pretty much for free to a SUNY school in New York. We have to do the kinds of things now so that we're competitive into the future.
So the good news is that the increase will be somewhere between 6% and 15%.
I hope.
Which should ultimately be higher than last year. So that's a good goal.
Yeah, well, it would be great. That's of course our target. We're waiting to hear what the two houses think that number should be.
Well, we touched on the governor. He not only does he want 15%, but he wants to overhaul the public system. Do we have any more detail on that? I know we've talked about that in the past, right when he first announced it.
So I just want to emphasize again just how great it is to have a governor who's paying attention to public higher education to the degree that they are paying attention to public higher education. And if you look at what the goals that they have are, which is, to get funding where it should be, to increase enrollment, to make it easier for students to have pathways to their education, moving through community colleges to our state-owned universities, a scholarship program. I mean, these are all great things. And, the governor has given some details now to a little more details to his plan. The Republicans have responded, but I think even the Republicans would acknowledge that if it wasn't for the governor coming out with his plan, it's unlikely they would have been as focused on it as they are. So it's, I think the governor really deserves tremendous credit for putting this on his agenda. Now, about the governor's plan. The governor's plan is this 15% increase, but the 15% increase is related to putting the community colleges and our universities into a separate system. And then there's a performance funding aspect to what he wants to do as well. And as I said, a scholarship program. He has said that no student should have to pay more than $1,000 to go in. So there is some additional details. The legislation, as far as I know, today, as you're taping it, has not dropped yet. Okay. But I think we're anticipating it coming very soon.
Oh, good.
Very, very soon.
That will help.
Yeah.
Has a strategy been developed to attract new students, Ken?
You mean to attract new students from other states?
Yes.
Or
yes.
that? I think that this is what, the governor is focused on. I think that's what the Republicans in their plan are focused on too, is to try and make it affordable. And if it's affordable, then you're going to be attractive and competitive. So I think that there's actions being taken to do that. I think the system has rightfully focused on keeping costs down. So there's been an increase in state appropriations to the state system, but at the same time, it's like 5-6 years now, we have not increased tuition in the state system. So, there's a real effort there to try and, keep the costs under control, get some additional funding in order to be able to keep the costs down.
Well, Ken, if you spelled out some of the elements of the governor's plan, what are the elements, the basic building blocks of the Republican plan that's been put forth? Yeah,
so the Republicans have proposed, a new scholarship program, a new scholarship program and adding money to an existing scholarship program, which is mostly aimed at attracting students and giving them scholarships for going into high-need areas, with kind of the promise that for every year that you would take it, you would have to remain in the Commonwealth. It's very similar, actually, to Governor Wolf's proposal that he had made, although it's more money even than Governor Wolf had suggested.
Did they define high need, or is it going to be defined as needed?
How's
that going to work?
I think they're leaving it to others to define, what high need would ultimately mean, because that is a shifting thing, and if you spell out a particular area, you could, you can create oversupply too.
Well, if you solve it, you don't want to keep it on the list of high need. So.
Right, and we have some concerns as a strategy about that too, because we think the liberal arts gets just completely underplayed, right? Like, because the evidence shows that over the long haul, if you get a degree in the liberal arts, that you may not make as much money coming out of college, but over the long term, you're going to end up making more money than you would otherwise make. And not only that, it prepares you for a multitude of different things.
But
the thing is with the liberal arts, and why it's hard both to explain to parents and legislators and the rest, is because there is no direct pathway. So you can major in political science, right? But that doesn't mean like you're getting a job as a political scientist or you're going into politics. You might very well wind up working at a bank, right? Or, lots of different, or in government, doing various different things, because it's about the skills that you're getting, the ability to think critically, to write, and things like that are going to make it beneficial. I would say also that I just saw recently the president of the AI company came out and said, like, the future, what's going to be needed to work with AI is not more computer scientists. Mm-hmm. It's going to be people in the liberal arts, because they're the ones who are going to be able to, tell AI what it wants it to do in a very clear way, and be able to work with it too. So, I understand, but certainly we have a tremendous need for teachers in Pennsylvania. So certainly gearing towards certain professions can make sense, at least in the short term.
We don't have but an extra minute left here, Ken, but what's on the agenda for APSCUF in the near future after the budget's done? Yeah,
so, the governor has recommended a scholarship program. The Republicans have recommended a scholarship program. We're going to keep up the pressure still on the Pennsylvania Promise, which deals with, so many more students and making college really truly affordable, if not free. If you're below, $200,000 in combined income, you should be able to go for free. And we think it's the kind of thing that would really attract people to come to Pennsylvania, that would give people an advantage, and also would directly prepare Pennsylvania to be competitive into the future.
Okay. Well, Ken, President of APSCUF, thank you very much. We can't wait to have you back again, and we'll be back right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On this segment, Maura and I have a special guest.
Me too.
We have the Auditor General of Pennsylvania, Timothy DeFoor. Welcome back to the show, by the way, General.
It's good seeing both of you, and I appreciate you taking the opportunity to have me on your show.
Well, it's wonderful for you to be able to manage your schedule and give us the time to come and appear. We had heard that you and your office have been spending a lot of time on looking at charter schools in Philadelphia and doing a performance audit there. This will dovetail very nicely with the segment we just did in the earlier part of the show on higher education. So now we have a chance to look at charter schools in Philadelphia. Could you talk a little bit about what a performance audit is, for example?
Well, thank you for asking the question. So this is all part of how we are transforming how we do school audits. And one of the things that we did very early on in the administration, we took a hard look on the work that we were doing in the Department of the Auditor General and how we were doing it. And we felt that there were some changes, some improvements that we needed to make with regards to how we do our work internally and also how we do our work externally. And this is all part of it. So it's all part of a plan to do audits that impact the taxpayers directly, and audits where we could show improvements, areas that are impactful, but things that also the taxpayers pay a lot of attention to.
That's your job.
It's
right?
exactly.
Make sure taxpayer money
Right.
is being spent correctly.
Exactly. So with the Philadelphia Charter School office, we were asked to look at, number one, how were they performing? And from this point on, any audits that we do with regards to schools, they're going to be performance audits, because that's exactly what they are. How is the Commonwealth, how are these entities performing with taxpayer dollars? So we were asked to look at whether or not Philadelphia charter schools were following their own charter school regulations, following Pennsylvania Department of Education regulations, and also other Department of Education requirements to determine if in fact that they were doing it. And so we looked at it and we saw that they were in fact following their own charter school office requirements, which was good news, in addition to Department of Education rules as well. However, we did state that there could be some improvements.
So the criteria you're using for this performance audit was just whether or not they were abiding by all the rules and regulations that were in place.
Exactly. And we noted in the audit that they were, but we did have some recommendations for improvement with regards to how they monitor charter schools. And some of those improvements were that they monitor charter schools more frequently, as opposed to monitoring like every 4 years. And by monitoring them every year, they will identify issues that are going to come up a lot more quickly and be able to deal with them a lot quicker than they are if they would do it every 4 years. So that was the one recommendation that we had. And the charter school office stated that that's something that they would definitely consider monitoring every year as opposed to every 4 years. Because if you do it every 4 years, you can imagine what can happen.
A lot.
A lot can happen, right? So any issues such as with Franklin Town Center Charter School, where it was determined that they were discriminating against kids in a certain zip code, by doing it every year before a problem like that would really become as big as it was, you would see it happening, you'd be able to deal with it.
Well, General, there was a mention of discrimination in the report in this one area of Philadelphia. Could you talk specifically about how that came about?
Well, one of the things that we noted inside the audit report, by monitoring schools on an annual basis, as opposed to monitoring them every 4 years when they were up for renewal, by doing it every year, as far as situations like this would happen to Franklin Town Center, it would mitigate or even stop that from happening, because you would be dealing with an issue a lot sooner than it would be the issue that it ended up becoming.
I think that a lot of people have general questions about charter schools, and I found it curious that Philadelphia School District has a charter school office. Do all school districts have a charter school office, or do they handle them differently across the state?
It's based on the school district.
Okay.
Based on the school. That's something that we didn't look at, but it would pretty much be based on the school district.
Okay.
There are some cities that do have a school office or a charter school office, Philadelphia being one of them, but it would be based on the city.
That makes it convenient for you in terms of an audit, though, because there's just one place.
It depends. It depends what we're auditing.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah. Good.
So, General, could you summarize again the three recommendations that came out of the performance audit for our public?
The main recommendation was that the charter school office should monitor charter schools on an annual basis.
Okay.
That's probably the most important.
Okay.
Another thing that's equally as important is that seek counsel from an outside entity, someone that isn't part of the Philadelphia School District, like a national organization that deals with charter schools. Seek recommendations on how you should handle not only this situation, but how you should monitor charter schools. So those are probably the main two that I would consider.
I was reading some great stuff that you're doing with some community colleges around Pennsylvania, not from an audit perspective, but sort of a job creation, skills perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about some of that work?
So, I mean, first and foremost, I'm a community college graduate. And one of the things that I felt very early on is that in addition to going out and talking to and recruiting students at some of the PASSCUF schools, some of the PASSCUF schools, state-related schools, and some of the other private four-year colleges, which is where we were recruiting from, because our job requirements stated that you shall have a 12 credit hours of accounting and a 4-year degree.
And you're talking, when you say we, you mean the Auditor
General's
General's
the Department of the
office?
Auditor General. And we felt, and again, me being a graduate of the community college, that it was extremely important to go to community colleges to speak to students, speak to administrators, but also to give them an opportunity once they've graduated to come work for the Department of the Auditor General. So we felt it was extremely important because there's some very talented students coming out of the community colleges. So we've gone across the state.
You've never heard of the Auditor General's office.
And a lot of, exactly.
Great visibility.
Right, and that's why it's so important that we speak to the students, we speak to the administrators, talk to them about what the Department of the Auditor General does. Talk to them about some of the audits that we do. Talk to them about opportunities working within a department. And also talk to them about how they now have an opportunity to apply for positions within the department, but 6 months after they graduate, but they also have an opportunity to be part of the intern to hire program, which provides a career pathway for students as well.
General, could you please tell us about some of the other projects that your department is looking into pursuing in the near future?
Yeah, so we have two big audits coming up. One is we're doing a audit on the reserves for cyber charter schools. So that one should be coming up sometime this summer, early fall. In addition to that, we're also doing an audit of pharmacy benefit managers and Medicaid. And one of the reasons we had it's kind of a joint audit with the Department of Human Services, and it's something that has been discussed for some time, and we feel that's extremely important to look at pharmacy benefit managers. If you think about who the number one consumer of pharmaceutical drugs, it's government. So so we feel that it's extremely important for us to get to the bottom of see what pharmacy benefit managers are doing, and if the Commonwealth is getting its bang for its buck by pharmacy benefit managers.
When will that one be done?
Hopefully around the same time.
Okay.
Around the same time.
A lot of interest in the cyber charter school reserve
Yeah.
issue as well.
Yeah, it's exactly. As you know, early last year, I believe, we did one for public schools. And so now we're doing it for cyber charter as well. I mean, the bottom line is the taxpayers want to know how their tax dollars are being spent, with regards to whether it's school reserves or whether it's pharmacy benefit managers. And it's my duty and my responsibility to do that. That's the purpose of the department, is to make sure the government is transparent and making sure that the programs that taxpayer dollars fund are in fact working.
Has the pharmacy benefit managers audit been done in other states?
Ohio was the first one to do it, and I believe in 2018. And some of the findings that they had were pretty interesting. So, and shortly after that audit, a few other states started to do it, not only with regards to government-sponsored healthcare programs, but also with regards to private insurers. So we felt it was necessary for us to do that here in the Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have a favorite audit?
Do I have a favorite? I like all of them.
Do you?
Oh yeah, I've been doing this for.
There's some interesting ones.
There's some good ones. I've been doing this for about 30 years. I remember when I first came on board, and I would start asking a lot of questions about all kind of audits, and I remember my deputy chief of staff said, "Tim, you're not an auditor. You're still an auditor, but you're the Auditor General, so you can't get too much into the weeds," because I really love doing the work. But no, there aren't. I don't necessarily have a favorite. When my auditing career began, it was in healthcare. So the one for pharmacy benefit managers, definitely, and it's the first time that we've done this type of audit.
It's a new one.
It's a new one. So this one has definitely drawn my my interest, and I'm extremely eager to see what the audit results are.
Yeah.
In the last 10 seconds of our interview, General, how would you respond to that growing chorus of individuals within the Republican Party across the Commonwealth that are saying, gee, the Auditor General ought to be taken a look at as a likely gubernatorial candidate in the next election?
Well, I'll tell you what, I like my job as an auditor. I like my job as an auditor. And as far as anything else, I haven't even considered it. I mean, because right now, I am the Auditor General, and that's the only thing I'm focused on, is just the work that we are supposed to be doing.
And you have heard it here from the Auditor General himself. And we'll be back next week for another episode of Behind the Headlines. See you then.